Hi, second grade, and welcome back to history. Today we're going to be starting chapter 6, The American West, Building a Railroad. Let's jump into it. For many years, the way to travel to the American West was by wagon train. By 1830, however, a new form of transportation had come to the United States, the railroad. At first, railroads were just short lines between two cities, but soon they stretched from the east all the way to Nebraska. People began to dream of a railroad that would connect the east to the west, all the way across the country. It would be a challenge. The railroad tracks would have to be laid across the plains and then over rugged mountains. Two railroad companies began to work on this huge project. It was a race to see who could lay more miles of track. The Union Pacific Railroad started in Nebraska and worked west. The Central Pacific Railroad started in California and worked east. Many people who came to America to find work and a better life were the builders of this great railroad. It was often dangerous work. The men worked through hot summer days and cold, snowy winter days. Their hard work changed the way Americans traveled. As the railroad tracks were being laid, people continued to move and settle westward. Native Americans called the train the Iron Horse. Trains were more powerful and faster than wagons, but the railroad caused problems for the buffalo herds that the Native Americans depended on. Hunting buffalo was an important part of their way of life. Indians used buffalo for food, clothing, and even shelter. As more and more settlers began coming to the West, soldiers and Native Americans fought many Indian wars. Many promises, called treaties, had been made between the Native Americans and the United States during America's growing years. The United States government believed it was buying land from the Indians, but Native Americans did not think of land as property. Many thought they were only sharing their land with the United States, not giving it up. This caused many misunderstandings. Many Native Americans felt that they couldn't trust the settlers anymore, so they began to fight with them. Many people became afraid of Indians. Soldiers began to force Native Americans to move off their land. Many people forgot that there were still Native Americans who were kind and peaceful. This is a sad part of America's history, for America has always been the Native Americans' home. It took many years to finish the Great Railroad, but in 1869, the Union Pacific and the Central Pacific met in Utah. The railroad was almost finished. Just one more spike was needed. While people cheered, a railroad leader drove a golden spike into the last rail. The railroad was finally finished. People could now cross the United States by train. That's about 3,000 miles. Can you imagine how it changed the way people traveled? The railroad forever changed the American West. Now, a quick little do you remember. Number 1, what did workers build to connect the East and the West? That would be a railroad. Number 2, what two railroad companies worked to make a railroad connecting the East with the West? That would be the Union Pacific and the Central Pacific. Number 3, what were some of the challenges that the railroad workers faced? Well, it was very hard work. First off, it was also dangerous work, and they worked in all kinds of weather, hot days and snowy days. And number 4, what did the Native Americans call the trains they saw? They called them the Iron Horse. And number 5, what was the very last railroad spike made of? That would be gold. All right, that is our short little lesson for this week. Thank you, guys.